What is good, people? Back with another episode of the Like Minds podcast. We are episode 4. These weeks are coming thick and fast. I've actually just only planned this episode about an hour ago, 2 hours ago. I knew what I was going to be talking about, but it's been a bit of a busy week. I've just come back from Newcastle at an incredible 2-day event with a guy named Paul Moore, where we were talking about all things business, mindset, personal development. I was in a room with about 30 business owners, and I can't lie, I was pretty nervous leading up to it. The closer it got to the day, the more I was like, shit, what am I doing? 'Cause I'm starting out again with my business. I kind of drew a line under the whole fat loss stuff, and as with this podcast, I'm moving more into personal development, coaching men, and I felt like not like an imposter, but all these people have got like big businesses. I mean, I didn't even know what to expect, but I already painted in my mind that, I'm going to be so far behind, I'm going to be a bit of an idiot. But it was the complete opposite of that. Like, it was great energy, not just from Paul, but from the people there. And there's something about being in a room with other men, other ambitious men, other people, not even just men, other people who are looking to get better, that is just infectious. And yeah, I'm so glad that I went and just went up there on my own and have the confidence and the belief to go and do that, which I know may sound silly, but the me of 2020 could barely phone a takeaway shop to order something because I couldn't speak to people on the phone. So the fact that I've travelled up to Newcastle and spent 2 days completely out of my depth is a big win for me. But one of the things that Paul likes to talk about, or he was talking about a lot, was journaling, and it's something that I've been doing for many, many years now. I've been through a bit of a journey with it, and I thought it would be a good episode to delve into, because we have around 6,000 thoughts every single day. I don't know how they've kind of come up with that number. Googled it, that's the number that it gave me. Somehow they did a study on it. I'm sure there probably is ways of measuring that, but we need to kind of make sense of those thoughts, and we need to make sure the thoughts are working for us and just gain a bit of clarity over it. So I'm hoping by the end of this episode, it will inspire you to pick up a pen and paper and start writing things down, or even just putting a little bit more thought into the thoughts that you're having, which I know that sounds counterintuitive, but yeah, it is, as the title suggests, the steering wheel of your mind. So something that he said questions of the steering wheel of your mind, but I just think journaling and writing things down is also a way of like knowing where it is that you're going, knowing where it is that you're falling short, knowing where it is that you need to improve on, and knowing what it is you need to reaffirm and keep talking about and practicing and telling yourself, so that you can improve, so that you can grow, and so that you can move forward. So we're always going to jump in with a story. I feel like until we start getting guests on this pod, it's going to be a lot about my backstory, and hopefully it helps you relate a little bit more, rather than me just sitting here telling you all the tips and tricks of writing your thoughts down. So I'm always going to relate back to the period in my life where I would say I struggled the most. Let's just say 17, 18 to 24. There was a lot of self-sabotaging. There was a lot of going into the same problems again and again. And there was a lot of just going around and around in circles. And one of the biggest issues I faced was, and I feel like this is a universal thing for most men, is bottling up how we feel and not being able to tell others, no matter how close they are, what it is that we're thinking and what it is that we're going through. So I either just bottled it up or I smoked a joint. And for most men, it's just like drinking, potentially. I never really went down that route. There's always something that will stop us from talking. And again, this is not just exclusively to men. I just feel like women have a bit more of a support group when it comes to that. And where was I? I'm not starting again. I'm going to try and keep this as honest as possible. So yeah, in that period, like, I couldn't really make sense of the thoughts. And the first domino that I would say was going through therapy. And it's a great tool. It's a great avenue. I would say everyone needs to do it. I, funnily enough, didn't choose to go and do it. It was one of those things that my mum was like, you're going to it. She put me with a lady called Tracy. And it was great. It was thought-provoking. I feel like if you go in there with the mindset of like not knowing what's going to happen. You can get a lot from it. If you go into it with a bit of a negative mindset, you might think it's a load of bollocks and you don't really just take it in. But I found it quite fascinating how someone who has spoken to you for a matter of minutes can make sense of your thoughts, or can know more about you, or understand the things that you've been struggling with for so many years, and tell you what that is. They can notice your patterns of how you talk about things and how you talk about yourself, and then say to you, right, okay, you keep saying this quite a lot, or like you say this, but you say you want this, but you actually keep talking about that. All these kind of things. I just found it really interesting, and I just kind of liked how I didn't really speak to people because I thought, oh, well, they have this perception of me. They already know they have this version of Lewis in their head. So if I say to them I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, or I'm not having a good time about this, then they might turn around and be like, well, I don't really see that because I have this version of you in my head. But one of the things we come to understand about myself was I had a big problem with self-compassion. So I was just my own worst enemy. I was the dick to myself. The little voice in my head was full of doubt, was full of pure hatred and despair. Let me see if I've got my phone. So she gave me an exercise to start writing stuff down, and this is how I'm alluding to where the journaling kind of started. I didn't really take it fully on board, but we had a self-compassion exercise, and it was just a couple of questions of like, when a friend feels bad about him or herself, or struggling in some way, how do I respond? How do I talk to myself when I'm struggling? What factors or fears come into play causing this? And this is dating back to the 6th of August, 2021. And my answers were pretty shitty. This is reading back, I was having pretty like suicidal thoughts. I didn't really see a light at the end of the tunnel. I was very good at giving advice and telling people how to reframe their mindset, but when it came to me, I was just like kicking myself down, and I feel like that was like the activation energy of just like, right, okay, something is wrong here, because you can have these thoughts, and like I said at the start of this podcast, we have so many thoughts, but we don't really give them enough time. We're just, oh, okay, you know what, that thought was there, but I'll sort of unpack it later, and most of the time we never do. And writing that down was like, okay, there is a problem here. I need to start seeing what this is all about. But before we go more into the story, journaling is not something new. This is not a trend. This is not high rocks. This is not ice baths. This is not like TikTok. Journaling has been around for fucking centuries, longer than I don't even know how. Like, one of the books that I've got on my bookcase back there is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and he was a Roman philosopher. And all it is his journal entries. Like, the whole book is just him and writing down in his journal how he's feeling. And he was a very wise man, and a lot of the stuff that we derive or that we experience now, he was experiencing as well, and he managed to unpack it in such a thought-provoking way. And one of the quotes from that book is, "Life is dyed by the colour of your thoughts." So linking back to the perspective episode of the way in which you think will determine like the experience that you have from your life. And the problem with the journaling part is a lot of people see it as, oh, dear diary, my crush looked at me today, and dear diary, this happened. It's like, not to be sexist, it can almost feel like a thing for young girls. Like, a young girl keeps a diary, not a man. Not a man's got a business. He can't be keeping a journal. He can't be writing things down. But I believe it's like the very first step to stop living your life on autopilot and start being intentional. Start seeing where the leaks are in your life. Start looking at things from a different perspective. And we have to start observing those 6,000 thoughts. Obviously, we're not going to be able to observe all of them, but we have to start asking the right questions to see, okay, what areas are falling short? What areas are actually really good, and I need to try and strengthen those more? And something that I've written down here is, awareness is the result of observation. You need to take stock of things that are happening in your life, good and bad, to start being more aware of them, to start knowing, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I need to kind of move away from, and this is what I need to move towards. But if you don't do that observation piece, if you don't take the time to write down your thoughts, you don't take the time to unpack a situation, you don't take the time to celebrate your wins, you won't know what the next step is. You won't know. You just sort of like meander through life, and again, like I was in the past, falling into problems and butting heads and not feeling like you can quite get to that next level. So I started to see the power in it. I started to see, right, okay, that was a bold statement that I was writing from that little exercise. And that exercise was not intended as a journal as such. It wasn't presented to me as like, oh, go and journal about your thoughts. She was just saying, go and answer these questions. But that's kind of what journaling is. And you might have thought after writing down such a hard-hitting phrase and a big revelation, then that was it. I started journaling forever and I did it every single day religiously. I fucking didn't. Like, I didn't stick to it for a long time, and I went through so many different phases of journaling. Usually it was when things were going quite bad, I'd start writing down my thoughts, and I'll touch on why you shouldn't just exclusively do it in that way later on in the episode. But I did things like the 6-minute journal. I did Notion templates. I was doing plain book journals. Like, I was just going through phases. The 6-minute journal one is good, especially if you're starting out, because it has certain prompts and you would do it in the morning and an evening. The Notion template, again, was the same, but it was on my computer. And then the plain book, that was a more recent one when I went traveling, of just letting my thoughts go, and I guess more over a Dear Diary type situation. But it became a bit of an outlet for me. So the part of me that couldn't talk about my problems, the part of me that would bottle things up, the part of me that would result into just smoking weed was still there. So in my kind of low points, I still, to some level, felt like a bit of a nuisance. Like, I would tell someone I'm struggling, but after that, I didn't want to talk about it again. I didn't want to say, oh, do you know that thing that I was struggling with? Yeah, I'm still struggling with that 2 weeks later. Or yeah, I'm still struggling with that 2 months later. So I started writing things down, and I started writing how I was feeling and trying to unpack things. Mainly when I was going through quite a painful breakup, and also when I was at the end of my traveling, feeling somewhat of shame. So I'll journal. I'll journal about how my day's gone. I'll journal about what it is that I'm thinking about, what it is that I'm struggling with. And it allowed me to see things more objectively. It allowed me to see things in a third person perspective. Again, linking back to that episode, I could read that as like a book, as a podcast. I could read it as someone else and be like, fucking hell, like, you keep talking about this thing, or maybe you need to start addressing that a little bit more. And I could start to notice the patterns, and I could start asking myself, what is it that I need to learn here? Is there something positive? What is it can I celebrate? And is there like a pattern forming that I need to try and break up? And the more that I did it, sometimes I would literally just write nothing. Sometimes I would just say, yep, had a good day, this went really well, got this achieved. Still thinking about X, Y, Z, but hopefully tomorrow will be better. And that may seem like pointless and a waste of time, but it's getting it out of your head and putting it down on paper. And journaling kind of facilitates 3 things in my mind. So the biggest one is perspective, is writing the thing down, reading it from a third person perspective, and trying to see, are there different avenues in my way of thinking? Is this negative actually something that could be a positive in the future? And I do strongly believe that every negative that happens, given enough time, will become a positive, because that step or that thing going wrong was the required setup for this better thing to happen later on down the line. Then there's gratitude. Again, very negative mindset. And even now, I'm a somewhat pessimistic guy in some sense, and I do look for the negatives, but it's because I don't practice looking at the positives quite a lot. I don't practice being thankful for certain things. And there's a little bit that I'm going to go through with that in a second. I'm going to unpack all of these. And then clarity. It just allowed me clarity of thought. It took those 6,000 random thoughts, put them down on paper, and be like, right, okay, what is it that I need to get from this? So, like Marco said, everything in our lives is coloured by our thoughts, and we can't change our thoughts through thought alone. We can't just think our way out of a thinking problem. There needs to be some sort of intentional mover, intentional unpacking of those thoughts to allow us to go to the next level. One of the things is something that's completely irrelevant to this conversation. We can change our thinking by moving our bodies and changing the state in which we're in. So that's why I'm a big advocate at the gym. But we have to change them by first observing them. Like I said earlier on, awareness is a result of observation. We have to observe, okay, I'm being really negative here. Okay, I keep talking about this fucking problem and I'm not doing anything about it. Okay, I keep moaning about X, Y, Z, and again, I'm not doing anything about it. We need to observe what it is that we keep on writing. We need to observe all the things that we are thinking and look from like a third person perspective. Look at it as a way of like, right, this is my friend texting me. That's a great frame for it. This is my friend texting me. They're saying this, and that to me. What would I say to them? What would I say the next action needs to be? What would I say they need to do to get themselves out of this situation? And what would I say they need to do more of to make sure they stay there? Again, like I said earlier, a lot of my problem in the past was I was only writing things down to be negative. I was only unpacking the bad things or when things were going wrong. And that's why my journaling journey was so flippant, because it was a lot of the times just only when things were going wrong, only when shit was hitting the fan, like, right, okay, I need to journal this down, I need to write it down and kind of unpack it. And I didn't really see the power in writing things down when things were going good. Like, this is a great period for life right now. What is it that I need to learn from this period? Where did I get, what were the actions that got me here? How can there is a recipe for success here. Now, how can I extract that recipe to make sure I copy and paste it next time? And one of my favorite quotes is linking back into the next piece of gratitude is, until you learn the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness. So you need to constantly reaffirm all the things you're grateful in your life. You need to be able to look at life from a perspective of glass half full rather than glass half empty. And this is a hard one, because in the beginning stages of practicing gratitude, it's very easy. You could be like, I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my freedom. I'm grateful for the holidays I have. But after a while, it becomes very hard. In that 6-minute journal, that's one of the questions of write 3 things down that you're grateful for. And you do get to the point of like, I'm grateful for my morning walk. I'm grateful for that sip of coffee. It sounds so stupid and it sounds so unnecessary. But there is a great book called The Gap and the Gain. And the whole idea of the book is, wherever you are, you're either in the gap or you're in the gain. The gap is where you are now to where you want to be, where your goals are, and always being in a sense of, oh, I'm so far away from this. My life is shit. I can't do it. Okay, maybe not my life is shit, but I've still not achieved all these things. And the problem with that is you can never actually reach your goals. We never usually realize that we've reached the goals. Like, we'd never actually get to a stage of like, wow, I've actually achieved all the things that I want to, because you get to that goal and then you've replaced the one that you did have with something different. So we're always in that gap. It always pushes further and further away. And we're never thankful for the things that we have, because we're always wanting left more. That's from my own experience. It may be different for you. But the gain is, where did you start and where you are now? Like, what are the wins that you've been having? What are the things that you are grateful for? What are the opportunities that you've had? And the more that you can practice that through gratitude and being thankful for all the things that you do have in this moment, no matter how big or small, you end up cultivating this like positive mindset. You end up taking that forward with you to see the opportunities, to be excited every single day, to make your own luck, because you're in this glass half full kind of mentality. And that comes from a daily practice of, okay, what things are good in my life? What wins have I actually experienced? And then you can take that forward. Gratitude is a great one. But like I said, it can be difficult at certain stages. Difficult in the sense of, you feel like you're just repeating yourself for all the things that you're happy for. And you see that as like, well, what's the point? I know that I'm happy for where I am in my job. I know I'm happy for the relationship that I'm in at the moment. So why should I keep repeating it? But you need to constantly train your brain like you would. It's kind of like strength training for your mind to seek out the positive and seek out the opportunities. And then the last one is clarity. So seeing those patterns, seeing those thoughts, and gaining a bit of clarity, I guess, on where am I at the moment? What needs to change? What needs to be celebrated? What needs to be unpacked? And rather than sitting there in your mind doing laps and laps of a problem or a situation or something that you need to do, you can just write it down. Like I said, 6,000 thoughts every single day. We can't make sense of all of them by thought alone. We can't sit there and think our way out of a thinking problem. So by writing things down and asking the right questions, it's only going to help you to grow. It's only going to help you to push forward and make that next step and get to that next level of you and upgrade more and more. So finishing this off of the big question of how do I start? How do I start journaling? Because there are so many different ways out there, and I don't know what works best for me. Now, the shit answer I'm going to give you is that there isn't a right way. I don't know which way is good for you, but I'm going to tell you some things that have worked for me, and go and try them. This is all an experiment at the end of the day. There is no one. I'm very against absolutes in most regards, like saying this is the best or that is the best. I'm very much in like, this really worked for me. I think this is a really good option, but again, you need to go and try it and see if it works for you, because the things that work for me don't necessarily work for everyone, and they may not work for you. So the most easiest one to get started is something guided, like the 6-minute journal, which you can grab on Amazon, and it's just a book. It has a morning and an evening. I'm pretty sure it asks questions like, what are you grateful for? What wins did you have? I can't remember what the other ones were, but it's good because it's repeatable. It's the same things every day. It starts getting your mind into that process of asking those questions, and then you start going about your days thinking, okay, I'm going to have to write down some things to be grateful for today. I'm going to have to write down some wins. So what have those been? And you're either going to be aware of them and start looking for them, or you're going to go and create them because you're like, I need to write this down later on. I don't want to get to the end of the day and not have anything to write about. So that's the first one. Great. Second one, a little bit easier, is the 1-1-1 method. So dead simple, one win, one point of tension or anxiety, and one thing you're grateful for. So the winning part is, again, cultivating that positive mindset, seeking out the good things in your life so you can be more confident, so you can then go and get more wins and start having a bit more belief in yourself, but also reaffirming, okay, I'm actually doing good things. I've actually got a good life, and wins can be different from day to day. They can be big, they can be small, but the point of tension and anxiety, bit counterintuitive, because you're like, why would I want to focus on the negative? But the main thing that comes from that question is like, right, this was a bit, or this, again, point of tension and anxiety could be nothing. You may literally say, no problems today. But if you did experience a problem, number one, writing it down. And then when you write it down, you can unpack it. Why was it a problem? How did it make me feel? How did I act in that situation? Did I act accordingly? Did I act like a bit of a dickhead? What could I do differently? And I think that's the most important part of that, is what could be different in order for that to not happen again, or for me to handle that situation in a different light. So it's a great exercise just to start changing the way that you handle adversity and handle problems. And then the last one is gratitude, which we've covered already. The third option, which was really good for me for a while, and I still do it to this day, is the freestyle part of just writing down whatever the fuck I want. Whatever it is that I'm feeling, whatever it is that I want to celebrate. I still have those questions in my mind of like, okay, what's going well? What things do I need to unpack? What things am I grateful for? What goals do I want to achieve? Where can I envision myself in my future? What habits do I need to stop doing? What habits do I need to do more of? But I can just write. There is no structure. Sometimes I found like the 6 minutes was a bit restricted, because after a while I was just like, I don't want to answer these questions. I kind of just want to write whatever the fuck I want to write. So you can either do that through a book, or what I would recommend is something called Day One. So Day One is an app on your phone. You can get it on your laptop. But the reason I like it, and they say to journal, pen and paper, because you have to take time to slow down and get your thoughts to paper, which I do think is great. It's great for those like 1-1-1s if you're writing something down. But I like the Day One because I usually write a lot more. Sometimes I don't write as much because my hand is hurting or I fucking hate writing, but I can write as much down as I want. I can add a picture, I can add a video. And the main thing is, every year on that day, it reminds me of what I've written previously. So it will say, on this day last year, you did a journal entry, and it's just a little snapshot of how I was feeling in that moment, in that time of my life. And it's so good. It's such a kick up the arse. It's such a positive reminder. It's such a initiator for that gain type of mentality of like, again, like I mentioned, we can live in the gap because we push our goals further away. Example for now is the life that I'm living at the moment was the life that I was dreaming of last year. And then I'm in that moment and I'm like, oh no, I want more. I want to have this massive coaching business. I want to be able to coach men. I want to do this and do that. And sometimes I need to take a step back and think, fucking hell, wait a second, mate. You're off the sofa. Like, you're in a great relationship. You've got a great job. You're starting this podcast. You're doing all these things. Like, sometimes it's just a good way of snapping you back in and being like, okay, do you know what? It was only 365 days ago I was feeling this way, and look where I am now. So that's my favorite part of it. But the main things are practice gratitude, set some goals, and celebrate your wins. And one that I've missed out there is unpack your anxiety, tension, or things that maybe rub you the wrong way, or you feel like you've acted like a bit of a cunt, put it bluntly. So yeah, off the cuff, one take again, 1 hour's of prep. Like, if you're still at the end, thank you. I appreciate you, but I thought that was a pretty damn good episode. So as always, follow the show, share the show. I would love to grow this a lot more. Subscribe wherever you are, and if there's anything you want me to cover, then always drop me a DM, or even if you just want to chat. If you want to chat, tell you what, if you're someone that's listening to this, you're nearby, I would love to like meet up with you in person, go for a coffee, talk things, personal development, mindset, or whatever it is. Just shoot the shit. Like, it would be good to connect with you guys. So I will catch you next Sunday. As always, every Sunday we'll have an episode, and yeah, let's start rewiring your minds, designing your lives, and improving your bodies to be the best version of yourself that you can be. God, that was cringe. See you in the next one.